I'm Milton Allen, and we're broadcasting to you from the Sojourner Douglas Owings Mills campus. We're here today with Dr. John Lampkin, an esteemed member of the music faculty here at Sojourner Douglas. Dr. Lampkin, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Man, that was an awesome set you just played.
Well, thank you very much.
And
I appreciate it.
Tremendous cats with you.
Yes, indeed.
And you know, it's great to have jazz in alternative spaces.
Yes, it is.
You know,
Yeah.
who would have thought that we'd have a serious jazz set in an academic setting?
Right, right.
On a Friday night,
Right.
in Owings Mills.
Right.
That's awesome. How did you first get started in jazz?
Well, I grew up in Atlantic City. I'm from Atlantic City, New Jersey. And you can tell by my hair, when I grew up, it was much before the casinos. No casinos at all. But there was a very thriving music community in Atlantic City, particularly in the summertime. It was like little New York. And all the great players used to come through Atlantic City. I saw the Basie Band. I saw Ellington walking down the street on Kentucky Avenue. There was the Club Harlem. There was Gracie's Little Belmont. There was the Top Hat, the High Hat. There were all these places. Wonder Garden, around the corner was Timbuktu, you know. And so each one of these places had live music in them. Organ trios, you know, quintets. So there was a lot of music going on in town. And I would, this is an interesting story. So I'm Episcopalian, okay, by birth. And so I would go to church every Sunday. But as I got into high school, I go to church Sunday morning at 7 o'clock. I catch 7 o'clock mass, see, Sunday morning. And you see, because my folks, you know, were kind of reticent about letting me go hang out on Friday night, on Saturday night down on the block down there, right? You know, so, but Sunday morning, I could go to church 7 o'clock, and the Episcopal service was over at 7:45, 45 minutes. I could take off my cassock and Carter and go around the corner and catch all the breakfast shows, you know? And so I would see all these great musicians, and I'd hang out there until about 12 o'clock because Mom and Dad would go to church at 11 o'clock, so they weren't home. So I would stay out and hang out on Sunday morning, and the breakfast shows would be coming out. And it was, I mean, you can imagine how spirit-filled Atlantic City was at that time. Sunday morning, man. And but I mean, that's only part of it. Harvey Mason is a good friend of mine. We grew up together. He ended up making a name for himself with Herbie Hancock. He played with that Chameleon thing, and then took off. Now he's with Foreplay. And so he was in high school. He was a little behind me, about a year or two. And we would hang out on the corner of Kentucky Avenue and Arctic Avenue in front of the Wonder Garden. That's where I met Jimmy Smith and, you know, Chris Colombo and Gene Ammons and all those cats, and Stanley Turrentine used to come through town. You know, so that was my background, and it was then that I was bitten by that musical bug, particularly the jazz bug. And see, at that time, it was 2 union halls. It was the Black Union Hall, Musicians Union Hall, and the White Musicians Union Hall. Well, the Black Hall was right across the street from my church on Arctic Avenue. And so I would go over there, and the older musicians would help me, and, you know, and then they would be improvising and jamming, and they would show me what to do and whatnot. And so that was my background in terms of beginning to love this music. And this is an interesting story too. So Mom and Pop knew that I, you know, was into jazz. Mom was a piano player, excellent piano player. She didn't play jazz. She taught piano at the house. My father was a vocalist. So they knew that I was into the music. So come Christmas, they went out and bought me an album, right? You know. So I guess my father and mother were going through the stack, and they saw The Sermon. So
Jimmy Smith.
Yeah, by Jimmy Smith, right? So that's what they brought home, The Sermon. Well, you know, The Sermon had probably some religious connotations to them, you know, and of course, if you look at music the way I look at it, it's very spiritual anyway. And so they picked up The Sermon and brought The Sermon home and presented that to me on Christmas. And man, wow, that was it for me. You had Lee Morgan, you had The alto saxophone player, his name escapes me right now, but Jimmy Smith, and man, phew, that
What's your present association with Sojourner Douglas College?
Well, I'm a adjunct faculty, and I teach jazz history. This is an interesting story too. I came on board teaching music appreciation and teaching. Actually, my first job was to teach music to elementary and early childhood development education majors. Okay, so after so long, that morphed into music appreciation. So I taught music appreciation there for quite a while, and I was also working on my PhD, and so it got very difficult for me to do Sojourner Douglas and drive down to the Eastern Shore and do that gig and do, study for my PhD. So I talked to Miss Evans and I told her, I said, Miss Evans, I can't do all of this. I said, I have to give Sojourner Douglas up. I said, however, my wife has a music education undergrad degree from Claflin. That's how we met. And so I said, I have someone who can step right in and do the job. So she said, well, tell her to come on in and interview. Sure enough, she interviewed. Now she's the chair of the humanities division. So that's interesting. So they knew that I was about jazz, and my close friend Ruby Glover passed. And she was teaching jazz appreciation. And so shortly after that, they asked me to come on back. By that time I had my doctorate, and if I'd come back and teach jazz appreciation. So that's what I do. I teach the jazz appreciation. Eartha teaches the music education, or the music appreciation.
It's a family affair.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, you told us why you originally got into teaching, because the only major available in South Carolina was music education.
That's right.
Why do you continue to teach today?
Well, somebody taught me. Somebody taught you. Somebody taught everybody who can read or write or speak. And so I'm a music educator. I'm a musician, but I'm also an educator. And so what I try to do is pass the little I know along to the students who are coming up. This is interesting. I'm on Facebook, right? So a few people I delete off my page every now and again. But there's a guy who evidently he's working on his master's, and so he put a thing on Facebook, and it went something like this. I'm paraphrasing. He says, look, I have to ask a question to several males and several females about something that they like, or about something, and I want to know how well they like what it is that they like, and they have to fill out a scale from 1 to 100. What should I ask them about? So people start talking all kinds of crap. You had to ask them about this, whatever. And so I knew him. He's a band director down on the Eastern Shore. Okay, saxophone player, young guy. He's probably in his 30s now. And he's evidently working on his master's. So I said, so I texted him back. I said, look, so what kind of class is it? So he said, it's psychology and music class. I said, psychology and music? I said, okay, here's what you do. Like me, I was telling him what to do. I said, here's what you do. I said, look. I said, you get some Art Blakey or some Miles Davis or some Freddie Hubbard, or some Dizzy Gillespie, Horace Silver, one piece from one of them, I said, or get a movement from a Brahms symphony, or movement from a Schubert symphony, or movement, Mahler symphony, or get a movement from a clarinet concerto, or I know he plays saxophone. I said, saxophone concerto. I said, get one movement, anything you choose. And then have them listen to that. And then ask them, rate how well they like it from 1 to 100. I said, now what that does, first of all, they're listening to the music, and they're not going to be influenced by the lyrics or anything else, by it's just the music. So now they're going to have to listen to this music. I said, plus, you're going to play something for them that they probably have never heard or never know about. Then you can begin to talk about it, about what it is that you heard. So he texted me back. He said, that's a great idea, So from that point, I teach. I teach. And I enjoy teaching. I enjoy watching the students develop, and seeing the spark in their eye when they get something that I've been talking about, or when they play something. I had a little student, I see many of my students out there. I know that I have had something to do with helping them become successful, and I think that for anybody, is rewarding in itself. I mean, it ain't about the money, you know what I mean? And I tell people, even when I go out and play somewhere, it's not so much about the money. It's, the money's very important, but it's the satisfaction that you get, number one, from seeing people's eyes and have them feel something, and know that what you've done, as little as it is, have made somebody happy, and let them just kind of forget their troubles just for a few minutes, forget that pain that they got in their leg for a second, you know what I mean? And then when I see one of my students, I got students teaching, as a matter of fact. That young man, he's a trombone player, and he got his undergraduate degree from me. Then he went to Howard and he got a graduate degree. He couldn't find a job. He couldn't find a job at all. And my wife and I help, has a summer program. It's called the B Sharp Summer Music Enrichment Academy. Right. Yeah. And so he's one of the teachers. And so we gave him a job. He's a trombone player and plays bass. And so I could observe him teaching and whatnot. Well, finally he landed a job in Baltimore City teaching, okay? And so he's been calling me back and forth, Dr. Lampkin, what do you think I should do in this particular case? What do you think I should do? So forth and so on. Now he doesn't call as much now, but when he first got the gig, got the job, he was calling and I tried to help him and whatnot, but and I have several teachers out there, but to know that you've had something to do with their success is a tremendous gratitude that you feel. I mean, they don't know it, but I know it, and so that's why I teach. But again, somebody had to teach me, and I look back at those teachers, and I had a wonderful trumpet teacher, Langston Fitzgerald, and so I used to go over his house Sunday morning, and he taught me so. So now, with my trumpet students, I can pass that on to them. I can pass my experiences on to them. That's what teaching is all about.
Dr. Lampkin, I want to thank you for taking this time to speak with us from the Sojourner Douglas Owings Mills campus in Owings Mills, Maryland. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
God bless you.
Thank you for having me.
All right.
Pleasure's mine. All right.
I got to ask you this.
What's that?
You're from Atlantic City.
Yeah.
You were there. Music was absolutely high.
It was very high. Yeah.